One of the key witnesses in this trial will be the former Defense Department Chief of Staff, Patel. We have had him on the program before. He joins us now from Palm Beach, Florida. So just to bring everybody up to date, you were involved before, during, and after January 6th, directly involved, correct?
Yes, sir. I was in the Oval Office with the president days before, and I was involved on January 6th and after because I was the Chief of Staff for the Department of Defense.
All right. When the Trump lawyers call you, let me ask this question first. Has Jack Smith or anybody from the Justice Department contacted you?
Oh, yeah. I've been subpoenaed. I've appeared before their grand jury multiple times, and I've got no problem with it because I just told the truth.
So you have appeared before the grand jury and told your side of the story, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you are testifying, and you will be one of the main witnesses in the Trump conspiracy trial, what is the headline? What are you going to tell the jurors?
The truth. It's simple. Days before January 6th, I was a precipient witness firsthand in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chief of Staff to the President of the United States. And days before, Donald Trump authorized 10,000+ National Guardsmen and women. And Mr. O'Reilly, just think of it this way. How is it factually and legally possible for Nancy Pelosi, the Capitol Police, and Mayor Bowser to reject that National Guard authorization if Donald Trump didn't authorize it? We have the written.
Let's stop for a minute. Is there paper that shows the president authorized the National Guard before January 6th? Is there any paper that you can produce?
Well, I can't because I'm not a DOD anymore, but there's memorandums mobilizing segments of the National Guard.
So there are memorandums before January 6th. That's going to be a very powerful piece of evidence. Now, Smith and the Justice Department say you, Patel, are not credible. You're in the pocket of Trump. You know they're saying that, right?
Yep.
And you reply?
Very simply, put aside my testimony, put aside what I just told you about legal and factual impossibility, and move on to the January 6th committee, which I've also was subpoenaed by the first person, by the way, and testified truthfully there as well. And what do we just learn? That 2 years ago, a career Secret Service officer, Antonio Ornato, who is an apolitical officer assigned to presidential protection, testified to the January 6th committee that the 10,000+ National Guard authorization before January 6th was in fact true and happened, and he responded to that authorization internally in the White House. Why did Liz Cheney and the January 6th committee bury that exoneration, that piece of evidence that destroys the insurrection narrative? That's the question that people are asking now. And now the mainstream media and everybody else is pivoting. They're saying the logic doesn't make sense. Donald Trump's guilty of insurrection because he did not order the domestic deployment of the United States military. They've completely lost the logic, the law, facts.
By law, he had to get the permission of the mayor of D.C.,
Yes.
Bowser, who said publicly she turned him down. Pelosi denies even knowing about the request. Do you think you have evidence to prove that Pelosi is lying?
Look, we sent the Secretary of the Army immediately after that authorization, days before, to the Capitol Police, who respond and work for Nancy Pelosi. Again, don't believe me. That conversation happened. The Capitol Police.
Well, is it a conversation or is it an in-writing request?
To the Capitol Police or the refusal?
To the Capitol Police.
We sent the Secretary of the Army immediately in person. Whether he sent a memorandum after that, we'll have to check the Department.
All right. So the Secretary of the Army is going to have to testify to that. But Pelosi is saying, well, somebody told me. But be that as it may. But
there's one point. There's just one thing on the Capitol Police. They published their own memorandum reciting the sequence of events before and on January 6th. And in their own memorandum, they rejected in writing the authorization of the National Guard.
Okay,
they turned it down.
But they don't mention Pelosi in it. I know about that man. Now, get back to your Liz Cheney question. Clearly, Liz Cheney didn't want a fair hearing on the January 6th committee. That's clear. She wanted to condemn Donald Trump, and she knew her media allies would print everything she said, and anything that was exculpatory would be ignored. So Liz Cheney had no, she had cover to do this dishonest thing, which she did, in my opinion. She did, however, mention your testimony way, way down in the transcript, correct?
I think they cited it, but they also precluded the evidentiary documents I'm talking to you about, even though they had an agreement to incorporate that into the final report. They excluded Mayor Bowser's
they didn't put them in. Okay.
They excluded the documents from the Capitol Police.
Now, you wrote a book last September, came out the same time Killing Witches came out, my book, called Government Gangsters, The Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. So I want to alert people that everything that you're telling me today is in the book. All right, you say that it's pretty much organized crime running the country from Washington. Is that an overstatement by you?
Look, again, it's the same MO from Russiagate, which I exposed and talk about in the book as a chief investigator. Instead of the executive branch withholding evidence of innocence, now we have the legislative branch performing the same operation in Liz Cheney and the Jan 6 committee. And we put the receipts in that book, which is why the Joe Biden administration wormholed it for 10 months and blocked its release. There's got to be a reason I had to take them to federal court to sue. So again, you can believe me, but the truth is in their own written word. And that's the most powerful evidence. And we got it.
Well, I do believe you. If I didn't, I would be tearing your throat out right now. I do. But I'm not sure that a jury in Washington, D.C.
Right.
will examine the evidence in a fair way. I would be surprised if they did. It looks to me like the fix is in on this one from the beginning until the trial. Last word.
I think you're absolutely right. Look, I used to be a national security prosecutor at the Department of Justice, and this is the definition of forum shopping. They could have moved this case to Kansas, Kentucky, even Connecticut, for crying out loud. But they knew they would have the best judges for the radical left agenda to advance this disinformation campaign of insurrection in Washington, D.C. And so they put it right there. It's ironic that the Department of Justice is railroading a two-tier system of justice through Washington. But Donald Trump, I believe, is exposing that corruption every day.
Well, we'll see. Do you ever talk to Trump, by the way?
Frequently. I'm his senior advisor, so we have some conversations.
If you're the senior advisor, that would mean you would talk to him. All right, yeah. Cash, we really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for your work, and we'll have you back, I hope. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir.
All right, here's an interesting media story. Again, I'm obsessed with the media, and I hope it's not boring you. Don Lemon, who I know a little bit, I ran into him a couple of times, but I don't know really who he is, and Elon Musk, who I ran in one time. All right, so Elon Musk is the head of X. He hires Don Lemon, who left CNN, and it looks like they're going to be buddies, but they're not. And here's why. This is a fascinating story to me. So on January 8th, 2024, Elon Musk tweeted, quote, "The airline industry can't find enough qualified pilots even without insane DEI requirements." So Musk is against the forced hiring of people based on skin color. 2 days later, he tweets this, quote, "Do you want to fly in an airplane where they prioritize DEI hiring over your safety?" That is actually happening. So Musk's opinion is that DEI drops standards from a meritocracy where pilots would be judged upon their flight hours, their safety records, and what they did on the job. Remember, you got to have a lot of flight hours to become a commercial airline pilot. He says, he believes, Elon Musk believes, that if you add skin color preference, you're putting people at risk. That's his belief. Okay? You can take it or leave it. Lemon interviews Musk, a major mistake for Lemon and Musk, and picks up on the DEI stuff. Lemon apparently believes that if you don't support diversity, equity, inclusion, that you're a racist or a misogynist. That's what Lemon believes. Roll the tape.
Okay, but do you understand how by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But you don't?
That's it.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent.
That's not what he's saying. That's what Lemon wants to believe he's saying. But that's not what Musk said. Musk wants a meritocracy, where the most skilled people are hired in a life-death situation. It's a pilot. I'm agreeing with Musk, and I bet you do too. I bet you do too. It doesn't have anything to do if the African-American pilot is the best candidate, you hire him like that. If I had a pilot when I went down to Florida who's a woman. Great. She's fabulous. Okay? But you don't factor the hiring of a airline pilot in based on skin color. It's how good are you? How is your record? So Musk was faced with a guy who's trying to tell him he's a racist and a misogynist. If I ran X, I would have fired Lemon too. That's disrespectful. And you can't interview on your idea of an implication. I get letters once in a while and I read them to you. Oh, O'Reilly, you're implying. I never imply. Ever. I tell you. It is not too late to make the right choice. If you're distancing yourself from companies supporting the radical left, please choose AMAC's Medicare Advisory Service. Whether it's prescription drug coverage, plan changes, exploring Medicare options, AMAC provides top-notch guidance from their experienced staff. Upholding pro-America values, AMAC has been helping people navigate Medicare for years. Their services are not only free of charge, but also free from any leftist agenda or corporate influence. AMAC stands as the conservative alternative to the AARP, earning its position as the #1 group for freedom-loving individuals. So make the right choice for your health and values with AMAC. Choices do matter, and the choice is yours. Choose Medicare the right way with AMAC's Medicare Advisory Service. You can call them at 888-355-5605 during normal business hours, 888-355-5605, or online at amac.us/trust. That's amac.us/TRUST. amac.us/trust. All right, American credit card fees, that's the vigorish, the interest they charge you and other fees, surged 50% since Biden became president. Why? Gas prices are up 48%. Most people buy gas on a credit. Grocery stores up 23%. I mean, it's incredible numbers here. Again, you buy gas, you're paying 48% more than when Trump. You buy groceries, you're paying 23% in the grocery store, in a restaurant more than Trump. Okay, people use their credit cards, I don't think. So boom, boom, boom. And their salaries have not gone up, at least that close to that level. So 50% more credit card expenses. Last year, Americans paid $157 billion in interest to the credit card companies. $157 billion, okay? Americans charged $1.13 trillion as of the final quarter of 13. So it'll be more than that. And people are getting hammered, they can't pay. So there are forfeitures on a car, there are this, there are that. And most people say 80% cited the higher prices as why they're in trouble with their credit cards. Now, with that fact, you would think Biden would lose by a landslide, just like Jimmy Carter lost. But remember, when Carter was running against Reagan in 1980, and this is another thing we have in confronting the presidents, it was tight 8 months before the vote, even though Carter was failing miserably in what he was doing in the Oval Office. The polls were tight. It wasn't like Reagan surged and was way ahead. He wasn't. It got, after the debates, and again, we'll take you all through that campaign in the book, then it started to widen for Reagan. But with these numbers here, Biden should be way behind Trump. Smart life. So very frustrating to go to the airlines. You know it. I know it. You're on hold for 3 days. They lose your bags. Nobody knows and nobody cares, whatever it may be. And you can't even get a seat. A friend of mine flew down to Florida, came back from Panama City late at night, packed Delta flight. So, smart life. There are places that you can track how much to pay. Google Flights or Hopper, Hoppr. I've never been on either of them. Google Flights or Hopper monitor costs. Kayak, Kayak, and Expedia also tell you how much it's going to cost. But the key is when you book. So international travel, you have to book at least 2 months ahead, at least. Now you can get a ticket before that, but you can pay more, right? If you book out, but then you have to look at the cancellation policies. And because things happen, you might have to buy trip insurance, whatever, complicated. But if you're going abroad, 2 months, if you haven't booked it, you're going to pay more. Here, summer flights should be booked 6 months in advance. That means January. And we're in March now, end of March. So if you haven't booked your summer flights, you can pay more. Because what the airline companies do is they look at the seat chart, and if the flight is, almost full, they're going to charge you top dollar. If there's not a lot of people going, the price will come down. That's why these websites are valuable. So you got to plan ahead. And if you're flying over Christmas next year or Thanksgiving, you got to book now. Now, smart life. By now, you have heard me talk about Delta Rescue. They are a fantastic organization that helps rescue animals from the wilderness. You know, I'm a dog lover, so is Leo Grillo, the founder of Delta Rescue. It is his life's mission to provide everlasting care for these once abandoned animals. I myself have donated to Delta Rescue. Do you believe it is part of man's duty to care for dogs and horses, the animals that so much of our history is tied to? If so, please consider making a donation or consult your advisor about leaving a gift in your will or trust. There can be some tax advantages, and it's a great way to help Delta Rescue accomplish their mission. So please visit deltarescue.org to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Everything is expensive these days, you know that. The government is printing trillions of dollars and consumer prices higher than ever. If the government continues its printing and spending, the dollar could continue its free fall and lose its coveted role as the world reserve currency. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But there are a few things you can do right now. American Hartford Gold can show you how to protect your money, your retirement, your hard-earned savings against inflation by helping you diversify a portion of your portfolio into physical gold and silver. Start with a short phone call, and they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or put inside your 401k or IRA. So please call or text them right now. Tell them Bill O'Reilly sent you. Call 877-444-GOLD, 877-444-GOLD, or text GOLD to 65532. Again, that's 877-444-GOLD, or text GOLD to 65532. Here is the final thought of the day. So I got tons of mail going. It's hopeless. If Biden wins in November, we're all going to move to Costa Rica, whatever it may be. Okay. So I'm not an optimist so much as a realist. And when you read Confronting the Presidents, you'll see that we have had some very hard times in America. We have low, terrible leaders, population at each other's throats. This isn't new. But we've always emerged, all right, as the noble nation we set out to be. Always. And, you know, when you start in 1776 and it's now 2024, that's a pretty good track record. All right? We don't have any violent revolutions here. We don't have any of this. Assassinations, yeah. But I know that this country is never going to go down the drain. Now, I can't say that about my state, New York. I can't, because that's tottering right now. And if it goes any further left, the state will collapse. But the good people are going to try to get out, if they can, economically. But the federal government, it's bad now. It's corrupt all over the place. It needs a reformer. It needs somebody to come in. It needs a Ronald Reagan, some charismatic person who can rally most of the folks. You know, I think it'll happen. Not going to happen like that, but I think it will. And believe me, I know more about the history of this country than most people know. 13 killing books. All right, one of them was outside the country, Jesus, which, by the way, if you haven't read it, I got a letter, how can I see the movie? It's on pay-per-view. Just put, all you do is Google Killing Jesus, the movie, and boom, there it is. And you press a button and you got it. Can't be any easier. But with Easter coming up, Holy Week next week, I mean, you might want to zero in on that. And it's not boring and it's not religious. So you want to learn about it. But anyway, I know a lot about history. And when you read Confronting the Presidents, you're going to compliment me. Because Dugard and I, Martin Dugard, the co-author, I mean, we just write down, boom, no ideology at all. None. Republican and Democratic presidents are treated the same. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All right? I couldn't get Clint Eastwood in the book, but the overarch is that. Thank you for watching the No Spin News, and we'll see you again on Monday. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.